They were a beautiful couple living the American dream.
He had high-profile entertainers that he's doing security for.
She's raising 3 boys.
They had a beautiful home.
He was so proud.
But it all vanished in an instant.
She just heard 2 loud gunshots.
He's at the front door.
He's laying in a pool of blood. Keys in the door.
He was ambushed, bushwhacked in front of his house.
Was it retaliation?
He got involved in something that he shouldn't have.
It was a well-kept secret.
But if it has to come out, it has to come out.
Or will the truth be far, far worse?
This is about to get a whole lot bigger.
There's so much that I want to tell you.
We did not have a clue.
These people were evil.
November 16th, 2017. It's late Thursday night in Gwinnett County, Georgia, a sprawling suburban community on the eastern edge of Atlanta.
It's one of the most diverse counties in the United States. So a lot of people come here because it provides a lot of opportunity.
It's away from the city. It's an easy commute back to the city. But Gwinnett is actually, pretty quiet. It's a good area to raise your family.
But for one local family, the suburban serenity is about to be shattered. It's just before midnight when Gwinnett County 911 receives a frightened call from 42-year-old Tia Young.
911, what's the emergency? I just heard a gunshot.
Tia explained that her brother, Tim Lee, who also lives inside the home, heard the shots as well.
My brother just went to see what he could see.
Tia's still on the phone when Tim steps back inside.
It's George.
He told her that her husband had been shot.
He's at the front door, right at the back door.
His condition is critical.
He's laying on the ground bleeding. Take a deep breath for me, okay?
In 2005.
If you're looking for more, you're going to likely be drawn to Atlanta.
You got people from out of town moved here, want to start a business or get involved in entertainment, sports. It's kind of the place to be for African Americans.
In Atlanta, George found work in the security field.
He had done some security work back in his hometown in South Carolina, but the opportunities in Atlanta seemed endless.
The entertainment industry is rooted here, and it's ever expanding.
Entertainment does require security. It's really necessary, and it's a really big industry in Atlanta.
And George had connections.
Tia was really good friends with a woman who happened to be married to a guy that owned the most successful security company in town.
We've got several high-end clients. We've done Rihanna, Usher, Jay-Z. We've done a lot of them. We've had Shaquille. Whenever there was an event in Atlanta, they were going to call Strickland Security.
While the connection got George's foot in the door, his hustle did the rest.
He's just so charismatic, and he's just had such a welcoming spirit that, a lot of my clients I had prior to George joining me, they would always, hey, Mr. Strickland, I'm going to need you to come out here on this job yourself. But after George joined the team, it was, hey, can you send George? He was just highly requested by all the clients.
Despite the high demand, George somehow found time to start his own business.
He owned his own electronic security company, installing alarm systems.
Smells good in here, babe.
You're up early.
Yeah. Gonna be late tonight, babe. I got 3 big installs today, okay?
Okay.
George was known to work long hours, sometimes putting in 67 hours a week.
He was just relentless. Guys like this aren't born every day.
Tia was just as busy taking care of the couple's growing family.
She's raising 3 boys. She was committed to being a stay-at-home mom, taking care of the kids.
But George always made time for his kids, too.
He would always talk about his boys, and he always found a way to be there for his kids. There's times he would call and say, hey, I can't start this job until 2 o'clock because my son has soccer practice.
In 2012, George's hard work and Tia's loving support took their family to the next level. A gorgeous new home in Gwinnett County.
George had that hustle mentality where he's going to do anything for his family.
Gwinnett County is a quieter way of life, a slower pace to life, and an opportunity to perhaps buy a bigger home that they can buy in the city.
Gwinnett is more of the safe place where you think, okay, well, I can get a nice house for a certain amount of money and raise my family.
Hardworking and generous. In 2016, the Youngs opened their home to Tia's brother, Tim Lee.
He was catching some hard times in South Carolina, living in motels, sometimes not having a place to stay.
George reached out and invited him into the couple's home.
George, I can't, man. Are you sure about this?
Come on, man, your family.
To help Tim get back on his feet, George also got him a job.
George had approached me one day and said, hey, brother, I have a guy that I want to bring on board. He doesn't have any experience, but I'm going to teach him.
And that was just the way that George was.
He was just so amazing, such a down-to-earth and real individual.
But now, George lies bleeding just outside the home he'd worked so hard to provide for his family.
Home is where you're supposed to be safe, where your peace is. You get that close, you're on the threshold, and you don't make it. It's devastating.
Is your brother, or are you able to do CPR? Okay, can you put your brother on the phone?
While first responders race to the scene, the dispatcher walks Tim through CPR.
Okay, I want you to put your hands in the center of his chest. You're going to push down twice per second, and we're going to count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4.
When first responders arrive, they find Tim still desperately trying to save George.
He was saying, don't die, don't die.
George, please. Sir, we'll take this. Come on, George, please.
They take over the CPR from Tim.
There was nothing that they could do.
George Young was pronounced dead on the scene.
After moving to Atlanta with his beautiful wife and 3 boys, George Young was living the American dream.
He's having high-profile entertainers that he's doing security for, and it's just leading him into a huge position in this industry.
He was so proud of being able to be successful in the business aspect of getting the job done, but to manage that family role as well. He found a way to juggle and be successful.
But then, everything came crashing down in an instant.
Tia Young called 911.
It's George.
Indicating her husband had been shot.
By the time first responders arrived to give aid to George Young, he was dead.
George is still on his doorstep when homicide detectives arrive on the scene.
George Young never made it in the house.
He's laying in a pool of his own blood, keys in the door.
George's iPad and papers are scattered on the steps where he dropped them.
He was ambushed, bushwhacked in front of his house.
They shoot him twice. The first shot in the chest and the second shot was in the head.
They wanted to ensure that George would die.
But who was the killer? The crime scene offers few clues.
No murder weapon was recovered from the scene. They did recover 1 shell casing.
It's from a .40 caliber automatic pistol.
They were able to establish what kind of gun was used.
It was impossible to say whether the killer followed George home or if he had been waiting for him.
Although detectives hope by speaking to the neighbors who've gathered outside, they can find a witness who saw the killer.
People in his community were extremely shocked that something like that happened in that neighborhood.
Several neighbors say they heard the shots.
We didn't know it was a shot. It sounded like a firecracker.
I thought it was something inside the house that fell. 4 seconds later, there was another.
And one neighbor had even heard the shooting's harrowing aftermath.
And he was like, George, don't leave me, don't die on me. And then I could hear the 911 operator trying to walk him through CPR.
However, the neighbors hadn't seen anyone fleeing the scene or anything suspicious in the neighborhood.
None of them had any idea who might want to hurt George either.
Nobody really had a bad word to say about George.
He's a hardworking man, hardworking father, loving father.
Hoping she may know more, detectives speak with George's wife, Tia.
By this time, Tia was able to regain some of her composure, and she arranged for her mom, who was also staying in the home at the time, to watch her kids.
Just kind of walk me through how you came about all this tonight, how you found out.
Tia explained that George was working security late at a mall in Buckhead for an event.
He told me this morning he would be home probably around anywhere between 11 and 1.
She says that since George was going to be late, she'd gone to bed early, at around 9:30.
But I don't think I dozed off to maybe like 10, I guess, down to 2:30, I'm guessing. I don't remember.
But Tia says she'll never forget how she woke up.
I heard a loud noise.
She didn't know if it was fireworks, she didn't know if it was gunshots.
Sometimes I don't know the difference between a firecracker and a gunshot, but I was wondering why somebody would be shooting firecrackers this time of night.
She goes to Tim's room. Tim's not there. She finds him in the kitchen working on his laptop.
I said, did you hear that? And he said, yeah, it sounded like gunshots.
The gunshots sounded very close to the family home, and out of fear for her safety and her children's, Tia contacted 911.
Tim runs and gets the shotgun that the family usually keeps just for protection, and he goes outside.
Tia says that Tim was only outside for a moment.
He ran back in and told Tia that it was George and that he had been shot.
The front door was wide open and I could see George's legs. That's it, because I don't want to see him like that.
Understand.
Tia says she has no idea why it happened.
Do you know of any reason anybody would want to hurt him or anybody in your family?
No.
By all accounts, this man has no enemies. Why is he dead?
I'm in shock. I just don't understand it. I really don't. This is crazy.
She was just confused.
I don't remember hearing a car speed off or anything. That I can recall, I didn't hear anything.
We're going to do everything we can to try to figure that out, okay? There's got to be something that happened, something maybe tonight, somebody followed him home.
Tia says she's unsure, so detectives turn to Tim, who appears just as devastated by George's death.
Tim told the detectives that him and George were very close and that George had done so much for him.
I was living in motels until my brother-in-law was like, start working for me and just stay in the house.
Great.
Tim's account of the shooting mirrors Tia's, too.
I was at my laptop doing work, and I heard a single shot. It sounded kind of close. And then seconds later, I heard a second shot, which also sounded kind of close.
Tim said that he was in the process of figuring out what was going on, but then Tia ran into the room.
That's when he grabbed the shotgun, stepped outside, and found George.
I grabbed his hand. I'm like, George, but he was just staring straight up. I kind of shaking him, George. Didn't say anything. He just, saw the blood.
He goes back inside, he lets Tia know, puts his shotgun up, and he goes outside and administers CPR for George.
I stayed beside him until the officer.
And like Tia, Tim doesn't understand why someone would want to kill George.
Any beef with anybody? Was anybody arguing? I mean, have you ever had anybody try to rob anybody? Anything that would make you, why you thought this would happen?
The only thing Tim can think of is that it might have something to do with their line of work.
We did security work for almost everybody. Actors, rappers, musicians.
Okay. And who was he protecting tonight? What was the detail for?
Tonight it was Little Yachty.
George Young was doing a security detail for a high-profile rapper.
When you are part of the team that's responsible for providing security to a high-profile entertainer, that comes with its own set of concerns and issues.
Now they're wondering if someone had followed him home from that event.
Detectives investigating George Young's murder have just learned that prior to his death, he'd been working an event in Atlanta's Buckhead neighborhood for rap sensation Lil Yachty.
George loved the celebrity event so much. Whenever there was an artist or an executive protection, he wanted to be a part of that. And we knew Lil Yachty was going to bring a real big crowd.
The more popular you are, you got to have security. And people come up to these celebrities like they know them.
It was an environment where George always shined.
Anyone he met for the first time, he made them feel calm.
He really had a knack for just easing tension in situations that may have been escalating. He knew how to bring that down.
We did many events, and everything was just always spotless. George was he became my good luck charm for those events.
But now detectives wonder if George's luck had run out.
Something could have happened in Buckhead, and they followed him home.
You never know if there's a fan that is upset because they couldn't get to their favorite entertainer.
I know he's up there at that rap concert. I'm not trying to say there's always crime involved with that, but, you never know.
Tim doesn't rule out the possibility, but he has little else to offer detectives about the killer's identity.
I didn't see nobody running, didn't hear no wheels squealing, nothing.
However, one thing seems certain. Tim had nothing to do with George's murder.
They did a gunshot residue test on his hands.
Anytime the police investigate a homicide, they are going to look at the people closest to the victim. It is standard operating procedure.
No gun residue or gunpowder was found on his hands.
They also tested swabs from Tia's hands.
The results of the tests ruled out Tia as her husband's killer.
The next morning, hoping to learn more about the hours leading up to George's murder, detectives reach out to his boss, Rob Strickland, who's still reeling from the phone call he received a few hours earlier.
I'm in the bed, and the wife's phone starts ringing. She picks up the phone, and then her voice says, "No, Tia, not George." And I heard that, and I immediately, I'm looking at her, my eyes are, what happened? What happened? She hands the phone to me, and Tia is saying, "Rob, someone shot George." Shot George? Where? In front of the house. And it was like an out-of-body experience. I'm going to myself, this has got to be a nightmare.
When they sit down with George's boss, it's clear detectives think there might be some connection between the murder and his security work.
The police said they needed to question me regarding the Lil Yachty event. And while in the interview room, they asked me a bunch of questions. What happened during the event? When was the last time I spoke with George? A lot of details. Was George in danger? Was there any issues?
According to Rob, the answer is no.
Nothing like that. So everything went well.
The event went great. Everything was perfect. No issues, no incidents.
By all accounts, it had been a good event. It had been a good night for George.
George was never in danger. Things just didn't add up.
Typically, when someone gets killed, they're involved in activities that can get you killed. They're drug dealing, they're robbing, they're gang banging, they're scamming people and whatnot. George Young wasn't doing any of those things.
I just don't see how this has anything to do with his work.
But is it possible detectives are missing something?
Typically, in a lot of homicide cases or any type of crime cases, there's always someone that is not going to tell the truth. Someone's going to hide certain information that is needed to connect the dots.
The first indication that something more might be going on comes when one of George and Tia's neighbors calls detectives with a tip.
Yesterday, before all the police showed up, I saw something strange.
The neighbor tells them that they saw Tim come out, run to George's car.
I saw Tim on the ground, messing around under the truck.
and then he got up and ran back around the house.
They wasn't sure, with everything just happening, what he could have done under that car.
Determined to find out, detectives bring Tim in for more questioning.
Could this be the piece of the puzzle that we were looking for?
Or is the puzzle about to get way more complicated?
When you went out there to be looking at the car, what were you looking for?
The tracking.
Tim Lee has just told detectives investigating George Young's murder that there was a tracking device on George's car.
That's what the neighbor saw Tim removing from George's car after the murder.
They were like, why was a tracker on the car?
Tim tells the detectives that it was George's idea.
He gave me the money to put a tracker on the truck.
To find his truck? How did you monitor that tracker?
My app.
Okay.
The tracker had an app that was downloaded to Timothy Lee's phone.
All right. Can you show me that app you're talking about?
This is the app right there.
Tim's story leaves detectives with even more questions.
Why would George want a tracker on his car in the first place?
And the explanation opened up the floodgates.
He said that he had gotten involved. He wouldn't tell me the full story, but he said he got involved in something that he shouldn't have.
But Tim tells detectives he'd eventually learn the truth.
George got involved with a guy named Terrence Bannerman, who was running guns out of Florida.
Gun trafficking is a huge nightmare for law enforcement.
Weapons are smuggled from states like Florida and Georgia, where gun laws are more lax, into northeastern states with stricter gun laws.
He was transporting guns.
Sometimes in conducting your investigation, you may find some things that are not so flattering about your victim.
Could that explain why George had been gunned down outside his suburban Atlanta home?
You know how dangerous that stuff is, though, right?
Yes.
Tim says George had only gotten involved because he was desperate for money.
He said George was having some significant financial problems. Even though he was bringing in a lot of money was going out. He had a wife that didn't work. He had 3 sons. He had a nice house. He had several vehicles. And he was kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And according to Tim, smuggling guns for Terrence Bannerman had improved George's finances. But recently, he started having second thoughts.
He wanted out because he felt like it was too much.
Tim told detectives that walking away wasn't easy.
They would not let him because he said he met too many high-ranking people. And they were not the high-ranking people in the gun traffic. He said he met too many high-ranking people.
Tim says that's why George asked him to put the tracker on his car.
In the event that he goes missing, at least I know where the truck is.
Tim said that after he told the gun runners that he wanted out, George feared that they would try to silence him.
You're saying that this guy come here and kill George as he's coming home? I don't think it's Terrence at all.
Or he set George up to get killed, or set out a hit on George, put out a hit on George.
That I'm not sure, but I do know that he has been ducking everybody trying to get out of it.
But is it possible Tim isn't as innocent as he claims?
There was one huge problem with Tim's story.
He didn't initially disclose that the tracker was on the car.
That means you're trying to hide something.
I didn't want the actual story to come out.
Tim said that he was just trying to protect George's reputation.
It was.
Tim also tells detectives that if they don't believe him, they should ask Tia.
Not too long ago, Terrence Bannerman popped up at the house and spoke to Tia.
And what did he tell Tia?
They need to talk because George is really messed up.
Had the mysterious Terrence Vanderman followed up on his threats?
Clearly, the detectives needed to talk to Tia.
So we need to ask Tia, see if she can confirm what you told us about this gun dude showing up at the house, and that she knew if George was running guns or not.
But when they step out of the interrogation to call Tia, her answer isn't what they expected.
He said George had the whole gun running thing. That's what he told me.
Tia said she had no clue what Tim was talking about.
It's hard for me to believe he was safe.
Why would she do that?
I don't know. I know nothing about that.
When Tim Lee claimed that George Young may have been murdered because he'd gotten involved with illegal gun runners, detectives were skeptical.
If someone followed him there, they wouldn't have let him go get out of his car and come all the way to the front door. They would have popped him as he sat in his car.
Why do it right at the front door where everybody can see and hear?
Tim informed law enforcement that his sister Tia could confirm his story and that a gun runner had come by the home and threatened her.
Let's see what Tia knows.
All right, sit tight.
But Tia's answer apparently wasn't what Tim expected.
Tia denied knowing anything about the gun running.
And he said George had this whole gun running thing. That's what he told me.
I knew nothing about this.
When they update Tim, he seems shocked.
I don't know why she's saying that, and you're telling me something different.
Tim says he doesn't know either.
He kept insisting that he was telling the truth.
I don't know where we go from there. I don't. Do you know what this Terrence guy looks like?
I've never seen him. Never seen him. I've just heard the name.
You've never seen him?
Not in person.
Despite their suspicions, detectives have no choice but to cut Tim loose.
Tia didn't back him up, so police had their suspicions of Tim's story that there was illegal activity going on.
It automatically put holes in his initial story about the gun running thing.
However, before detectives can dig much deeper, they're contacted by George's sister.
She said she had just gotten into town from South Carolina and she needed to speak to them.
When she sits down with detectives, she says she has urgent information about her brother's death.
There's so much that I want to tell you that I don't even know where to start. Like, I feel like this is just crazy right now.
She started with what may be the craziest thing of all.
Tia doesn't have a brother.
While Tia had repeatedly referred to Tim as her brother, it turns out that they were not related at all.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I grew up with him.
Tim was one of George's friends from South Carolina.
And I don't like him, I never have.
Okay.
But George's sister suspects Tia may have had a different opinion of Tim.
She said that when she got to Tia and George's home earlier that day, she found Tia and Tim alone together.
Hey, Tia.
It was in the room with the door closed.
Hey.
Both of them.
Both of them.
The detectives were pretty quick to realize where this was going.
Do you think that maybe they were having an affair?
Possibly.
You start to ask questions. Was there some tension going on in the house? Was there things going on within the marriage?
George's sister says she suspects that was the case.
They never go to anywhere together. Every time he comes home, she would never come home with him. My brother, he would go on like business trips, he would come home and visit. She would never come, ever.
She also said that George and Tia had stopped sleeping together in the same bed.
She sleeps on the couch in their bedroom, and she told me she has been for a while.
However, that isn't all she has to tell detectives.
My brother had a big insurance policy.
He did?
In fact, George's sister said that she found out about it from Tia.
She told me my brother had $1 million insurance policy months ago.
Okay.
An unhappy marriage, a possible affair, and $1 million in insurance money on the line. For detectives, it all adds up to a motive for murder.
It's one thing, infidelity, but greed will have you to do things that is out of the norm for you. Extreme things like plot against someone's life.
When detectives follow up with the insurance company, they discover that Tia had called to file a claim.
The insurance company even had the call on tape.
Can you email us the recording?
The name of the insured person, please. George Frederick Young III. All right, thank you. And may I have your name, please? Tia Young. And do you have a relationship to the insured? Spouse. All right, thank you. Are you calling in to report the passing? Yes. I'm very sorry for your loss.
The fact that Tia reached out to the insurance company was not suspicious in and of itself, because she did have herself and the 3 kids to take care of.
However, detectives couldn't help but notice when Tia had made the call.
What day did he pass away? Last night, November 16th.
Less than 24 hours, Tia Young is checking on that life insurance policy? That had to throw up some red flags.
But despite Tia's urgent desire to cash in on George's death, detectives are still a long way from proving that she and Tim were behind the murder.
This murder happened in November, and here we are in the new year, and months are going by, and I'm getting a little anxious, and I started contacting Detective Smith. You know, hey, Detective Smith, what's going on? And he just kept, hey, take it easy, Rob, it's fine. The DA's office, they need more evidence.
The search for evidence leads detectives to subpoena Tia and Tim's phone records.
Unfortunately for police, there was no murder conspiracies found in the text interactions between Tia and Tim.
They didn't find anything talking bad about George. They didn't find any type of coordination on the phone saying, I hate George, or we're gonna set George up and we're gonna kill him.
However, the text messages leave little doubt about the nature of Tia's relationship with Tim.
They found some intimate text messages.
Some would even say sexual.
They were in fact involved in an illicit affair,
which could give detectives some leverage.
The reason I brought you back in here today is I have a follow-up question.
The detectives come at her with the text messages that they found.
Been having a relationship with Tim.
If you tell one lie, you got to tell another lie, and then that lie got to follow another lie. And so after a while, the lies begin to catch up.
Put on the spot, Tia tells the truth.
She had no choice but to just admit to the affair.
The sex part, the affair, I'm very, very embarrassed.
What detectives were really wanting to know is if Tia would be willing to admit to anything else.
This is your only chance to tell me what's really going on, because everything else looks really bad.
Confront his wife Tia with the steamy text messages she sent Tim Lee. She confesses they've been having an affair.
And you guys are still in a relationship now?
Yes, to be honest, yes.
Well, that's what I want is honesty.
To be honest, yes.
Police kept pushing, hoping that she would admit to plotting her husband's murder.
What it looks like is you're this hateful, horrible spouse that connived with your live-in boyfriend to kill your husband for money. If that's how it is, then that's fine. You can tell me that. But if that's not what happened, then this is your only chance to tell me what was really going on.
But Tia has no intention of confessing to the murder.
The only thing I'm guilty of is having an affair. Yes, and I'm not belittling it like it's nothing. I know that's a big thing. So I'm not saying it like, oh, that's all I did, but that is the only damn thing I'm guilty of, is that.
She said that the only reason she wasn't upfront with the police about the affair is because she was trying to spare her family.
I know my mom and my children would be very hurt by it, but if it has to come out, it has to come out.
And it would all come out, both the affair and the alleged murder plot. After the interview, detectives placed Tia under arrest.
Turn her face the wall.
Police felt like this was all the evidence that they were going to get. And although circumstantial, they were wanting her to have her day in court.
When detectives bring Tim back in after Tia's arrest, he doesn't admit to the affair or anything else.
They were both interviewed one final time and placed under arrest.
Tia and Tim's arrests shock many who knew the family.
You have a man that is a great husband and father. A man that's doing everything any woman would want, and he's set up to be murdered.
It's really hard, you know, because you try to think of reasons why, but you can't.
When Tim Lee and Tia Young go on trial for murder in March of 2019, there's no doubt that George was well loved.
It was definitely a packed courtroom. Clients of ours, all the people George had known in his life, the entire security team, law enforcement. There was just so many people there. It gave us all a chance to spend a little time together and talk about George, about the good times. But it was real tough.
In their opening statement, the prosecutors argue the motive for George's murder was simple.
Tia wanted to be with Tim.
She should have been woman enough to tell her husband that she no longer wanted to be with him and simply gotten a divorce.
But while a divorce might have left her free to be with Tim, murder could get the lovers $1 million payout.
They killed him over insurance policy.
Many people who decide to commit murder let greed control their actions.
And just before midnight on November 16th, they were ready to cash in.
They plotted and planned and waited till he came home.
The tracker that Tim planted on George's car let them know exactly when he would be home.
And just as George put his keys in the door, Tim made his move.
Tim, what are you doing?
George went over and beyond for a friend, just to turn around and get betrayed like this? Ah, that's unreal.
These people were evil.
When it's the defense's turn, Tim and Tia's attorneys argue that prosecutors have proved their clients had an affair, but there's no evidence connecting them to George's death.
The case was 100% circumstantial, meaning that there wasn't any direct evidence. There wasn't any eyewitness testimony. There wasn't any confession.
They did not have a murder weapon.
They both tested negative for gun residue at the scene, but law enforcement was well aware that they could have scrubbed it off.
What the prosecutors do have, though, are Tim and Tia telling lie after lie.
Is the person that shot him still outside? No, my brother doesn't see anybody.
She lied right off the jump. It's my brother. Now, you can say that's my brother because he's my best friend or something like that, but it didn't sound that way. It sounded like that was our blood brother.
People don't lie to get into the trouble. They lie to get out of trouble.
George has been running guns and he has been trying to get out.
No evidence was ever found about gun running.
All of the little lies, all of the discrepancies added up.
The final tally is enough for the jury to find both Tim and Tia guilty of murder.
I was very happy with the guilty verdicts and hope that somewhere along the line that they clearly understand how wrong it was of what they did and how bad it was for them to make a decision to hurt someone who trusted them both.
And they'll have plenty of time to think about what they've done.
Tim gets life with no parole. Tia gets life, but she has a possibility of parole in 30 years.
Sometimes I feel that she shouldn't have an opportunity for parole based on her involvement and based on the trust that was violated.
Not only did Tia betray George, she also betrayed their children.
It's hard not to think about the boys, not to think about what they were going through.
It's just such a tragedy for them.
Because Tim and Tia's greed took something from them that... When a popular physician is gunned down outside her office, an entire city is rocked to its core.
Her homicide was shocking and extremely upsetting to very many people.
I just couldn't believe it. I cried for days.
To shoot someone 6 times shows the viciousness of this crime.
But beneath the gunshots lies another, more shocking level of violence.
There was a bite mark, but only the bottom teeth were the ones that were left an impression.
It was a crime of passion. The question is, whose passion?
As detectives step into this woman's life, they'll soon find themselves confronting a string of high-profile suspects, one more powerful and potentially dangerous than the next.
You're talking about a control freak who was a narcissist, a megalomaniac.
There was a bigger story here. It's definitely a shock.
97. It's the day before Thanksgiving in Akron, Ohio. At 10:25 a.m., Lori Collins, a medical assistant, steps out the back door of the building where she works for a cigarette break. In the parking lot, she notices a van belonging to her boss, 41-year-old Dr. Margot Prade.
She thought that was odd because they didn't know where Margot was.
Dr. Prade was supposed to arrive at the office about an hour or so earlier. The nurses and the office manager, they were waiting for her because there were so many patients waiting to see her.
Dr. Prade! Dr. Prade!
She saw Margot's body slumped over.
Oh my gosh!
And she saw blood.
Dr. Prade!
She didn't know whether she was alive or dead.
Lori Collins rushes back into the office to call 911. Within minutes, paramedics are at the scene, but there is little they can do for Margot Prade.
EMTC, she has multiple gunshot wounds. They pronounced her dead at the scene.
What do we got? No pulse.
This was a huge blow to the community. Margot was extremely well known and well loved.
The question becomes, obviously, who did this? Who's responsible?
Unraveling this whodunit will be no small task, especially when those responsible are holding all the cards.
There's no gun, there's no bloody clothes. All the things you look for in a homicide, none are present.
Margot Schamberger was born on September 17, 1956 in Akron, Ohio. The youngest of 7 children, Margot began making her mark on the world at an early age.
She loved school when she was a little girl. She skipped the 5th grade because she was so bright.
Her scholastic ability was amazing. She just excelled in many different areas.
Margot attended Central Howard High School, where she blossomed into a beautiful and brilliant young woman.
Long, beautiful hair, always dressed very nice, very neat. Her smile was radiant. It just lit up the room.
Margot dated occasionally, but wasn't in a rush to find a man. Then, at a charity event her senior year, she met Douglas Prade, a handsome young Akron police officer.
She was very impressed with him. He's very nice, athletic, strong figure, nice looking and well-spoken. She was smitten.
My name is Doug.
Margot.
Like Margot, Douglas also grew up in Akron, though he'd left Ohio for a brief period of time after college to serve in the Navy.
He had entered the military when he was young. He was discharged with a medical disorder.
Douglas was 28 years old, 10 years older than Margot, which is a pretty big difference at that age. But they were determined to take it slowly and just see where the relationship went.
Margot graduated high school in 1974, valedictorian of her class. But her dreams for the future were just beginning.
She always wanted to be a doctor, a family practitioner. She wanted to be able to service all ages.
Margot enrolled at Kent State University and took part in a dual program that allowed her to work towards both her bachelor's and medical degrees simultaneously.
It just goes to show you, if you're motivated, what you can do.
Throughout college, Margot continued to date Douglas Prade, whose career was also on the fast track.
He rose steadily through the ranks from patrol to a sergeant in the patrol unit.
In 1979, after Margot graduated med school, she and Douglas married. Soon, 2 daughters, Kenya and Sahara, made their family complete.
She was just so excited to be a mother and have girls. She wanted them to have the best of everything. They had a beautiful home. They had a pool, large bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. It was just a beautiful home, beautiful neighborhood.
Determined to ensure their daughters wanted for nothing, both Margot and Douglas continued climbing their respective career ladders.
Douglas Prade was a commander in the patrol division. He was thought to be next in line to become the next Akron police chief.
Within a few years, Margot completed her residency and opened her own practice in downtown Akron.
You must be Catherine. Yes. Hey, Catherine. So how are you feeling today?
Her practice was thriving. She was very well known and popular. Everyone wanted to have Dr. Praed as their doctor.
Unfortunately, the couple's professional success came with a personal price. The long hours Margot and Douglas both spent on the job left them little time for each other, and eventually they began to drift apart.
They spent so much time away from each other. They were going in different directions. At a certain point, Margot filed for the divorce.
And in April of 1997, the divorce was finalized, with Margot and Doug agreeing to share custody of their 2 daughters. Now 40 and suddenly a single mom, Margot found dating to be a daunting task.
She said, I went out on a blind date the other night. I said, girl, do black people even know how to do blind dates? We don't know how to do blind dates, and she started laughing.
Then in June 1997, a friend introduced Margot to Thomas Houston, an attorney from Columbus, Ohio.
Thomas Houston was a very well-educated attorney who worked for a prestigious law firm.
Thomas was it. So successful. Really, really nice.
Margot and Thomas made such an intense connection that within a matter of months, they began talking marriage.
What do you think about it?
I love the idea of being Mrs. Houston.
Margot fell in love, and so did Thomas Houston. He just said it was an incredible connection.
She was planning on getting engaged and moving out of town, maybe to Cincinnati. She was just so happy.
Which makes the scene in the parking lot of Margot Praed's medical practice the morning of November 26th all the more horrific.
It was shocking that a prominent doctor in our area was found shot in the parking lot of her own practice.
Margot was a superstar, and she was not just a superstar in the community, she was a superstar within her family. So who would want Margot Praed dead?
As investigators begin combing through the crime scene, they quickly realize that answering that question will be no simple task.
The crime scene just simply didn't make any sense, and the crime itself was so unfathomable that detectives didn't even know.
Shortly after 10:30 a.m. on November 26, 1997, police in Akron, Ohio converged on a medical building parking lot where 41-year-old physician Dr. Margot Praed was found dead in the front seat of her minivan. Now, one of the first questions on investigators' minds is how long has Margot been here?
Like most mornings, Margot had gone to do her rounds first. She had gone to the hospital, checked on all of her patients, and then gone to the office. They think she left the hospital about 8:45 or so.
The nurses and her office manager were waiting for Margot to come in as the patients are kind of lining up. And it's 9:15, it's 9:30, it's 9:45, it's 10 o'clock, and they can't reach her.
Her body was found at 10:30 a.m. Had she arrived at 9 a.m., her normal time, is that when she was killed? And if so, why had nobody noticed her body before that?
Detectives considered different motives for the murder.
The most obvious initial concern would be that it was like an attempted carjacking or a robbery because it was in a parking lot.
As they search the car, CSIs discover a diamond tennis bracelet on the passenger seat floor, one they presume belonged to Margot.
Hey, look at this.
One theory was that someone walked up to rob her. Maybe they struggled a little bit over the tennis bracelet, and then this person shot her.
The condition of Margot's clothing seems to support this theory.
She had on her lab coat. It was completely saturated with blood. Buttons on her lab coat were ripped off. We knew there was a struggle in the van with her attacker.
But as police continue searching Margot's van, they begin to wonder if this well-to-do doctor had really been the victim of a crime of opportunity.
They found her purse in the backseat of the car undisturbed with, money and credit cards in it. So they became concerned that this appeared to be an intentional murder.
As CSIs continue processing the scene, patrol officers radio Margot's ex-husband, Captain Douglas Praed, and inform him that there's been an incident outside her practice.
Once they realized that the victim was Margot Praed, they told Doug to come to her office immediately, but they didn't tell him what had happened.
Most of them didn't know that they were divorced. This was not common knowledge, even though it had happened 6 months earlier.
When Douglas Praed arrived on scene, he was falling to the ground and holding his face and appearing very distraught.
though it pains them to see their beloved captain doubled over with grief. Once Douglas Praed gains his composure, investigators know they have a job to do.
Captain, I hate to do this, but I gotta ask you some questions.
That's okay, I understand.
A woman is killed. Who is the first suspect? The husband. But in this case, the husband is a high-ranking police official and the detective's commanding officer. So this makes for a pretty awkward situation.
Can you tell me where you were this morning?
I was at the gym working out.
What time was this?
9:30.
He was very physically fit. He did work out regularly. It was his normal routine.
Where is this gym?
Over by my apartment. Off Washington, about 4 miles away.
Is there anyone that was there that may have saw you?
There was this woman. I don't know her name, but I've seen her there before.
Of course, detectives know that they're gonna have to confirm the captain's alibi.
Captain, we should do a gunshot residue test. Absolutely. I mean, that's procedure.
A gunshot residue test is a test that is supposed to let you know if someone has recently fired a handgun. It's not 100% reliable, but it's a pretty good indicator.
We have your hand.
A gun residue test was performed on Douglas Praed and was negative.
Can you think of anyone who would want to kill Dr. Praed? I don't know if you guys know this, but we recently got a divorce. I didn't. I'm sorry. I mean, it was totally amicable. But she did start dating somebody. I think his name is Thomas Houston. I think you need to check him out. Yes, sir. I need y'all to find out who did this. Y'all can have any resources y'all need.
Sir.
It really became a hunt for who had the motive to kill Margot. Who would want Margot dead?
And within a matter of hours, investigators would uncover evidence that would have everyone scratching their heads.
Pathologists have seen all kinds of crazy things. I would say they probably have
made a prominent and extremely popular family physician.
She just had a huge practice, over 7,000 patients, which is unbelievable for a city this size.
Whether she was helping people with their terminal illnesses or whether she was helping people with their physicals and pee-wee football, she was there for them.
News of Margot's death spreads quickly throughout the city.
I had gotten a phone call from a family friend. I was devastated. My whole body just collapsed.
Margot's body is taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
She'd been shot 6 times.
This shows the viciousness of this crime.
The speculation was that the gun used was a .38 caliber revolver because there were no casings found at the scene.
As the autopsy continues, the medical examiner notices an unusual mark on Margot's upper left arm.
What is it?
That's a bite mark.
This was only half of a bite mark. Only the bottom teeth were the ones that were left an impression.
How do you have half a bite mark?
I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before.
The medical examiner also finds signs of the bite mark on Margot's clothing.
There was a slight impression of it on the lab coat, but her lab coat was soaked in blood.
For those present, Margot's injuries seem telling.
The 6 gunshot wounds and the bite mark are indicative that this is a very personal attack, that this is someone Margot Praed knew and someone who was angry at her.
Given the seemingly personal nature of the crime, could Margot's ex-husband Douglas Praed be involved? At the scene, Douglas appeared genuinely overcome with grief and had willingly submitted to a gunshot residue test. But investigators had yet to confirm his alibi.
Douglas told detectives that he was in the gym working out when Margot was shot, and he also said there was one other person in there with him.
With no surveillance cameras at the gym, investigators checked the sign-in sheet from the morning of the murder. Not only is Captain Praed's name on the list, so is that of another individual, a woman named Kathy Lynch. Within the hour, detectives have located her and brought her in for an interview.
Coming in.
Hi.
Can we ask you a few questions?
Sure.
Do you remember where you were last Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving in the morning?
I was at the gym.
Miss Lynch would normally go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week and would arrive between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning.
Do you remember what time you arrived that morning?
I can't be certain for that day.
Was there anyone else there?
There was a man. He was tall, very well built, bald-headed.
Is anybody using this?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
So how you doing today?
I'm good, thanks.
Is this the man that you saw that morning at the gym?
That's him. I'm positive.
Kathy Lynch's statement seems to corroborate Captain Prade's alibi, with speculation swirling through Akron that the aspiring police chief might be involved in his ex-wife's murder. Investigators issue a public statement clearing him of any wrongdoing.
Douglas Prade is exonerated of the murder of Margot.
He moved back into the home with the daughters. He had custody of the daughters and basically took over the life there.
With Dr. Prade's ex-husband scratched off the suspect list, investigators turn their attention to her new boyfriend, Thomas Houston.
He lived in Columbus. He was in Columbus at the time.
Thomas was the closest man in Margot's life at this point, so maybe there's something going on in the relationship that no one knew about.
Thomas agrees to drive up to Akron for an interview with detectives.
Mr. Houston, I know this is a difficult time, but we have a few questions for you.
I understand.
Houston is completely cooperative with the police. He tells them everything about how he and Margot met and about their relationship, and he seemed genuinely upset about her death.
Are there any problems in your relationship?
We were honestly doing better than ever. We were in love.
He just said they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. The plan was that they were going to be together at Thanksgiving, and they were going to tell everyone that they wanted to get engaged. And then she was murdered the day before that could happen.
Where were you Wednesday morning?
I was at my home in Columbus.
You didn't work that day?
No. I took off to do some personal errands.
He said that he had some things to do before driving up to Akron that afternoon. He was going to help Margot with the Thanksgiving meal and stay over that night.
That's when I got the call and heard she was dead.
Was there anyone with you that morning? Anyone who can verify your whereabouts?
No.
Although Thomas doesn't have anyone who can immediately verify his statement, the 130-mile distance between Columbus and Akron makes him an unlikely suspect.
Columbus is about a 2-hour drive from Akron, and while he can't prove that he was there the entire morning, there was nothing to make detectives suspicious about him.
Okay, thanks for your help. We'll be in touch if we have any more questions.
Desperate for a more substantial lead, detectives hold a press conference, asking the public to come forward with any information they may have regarding the murder. The request immediately pays off.
Detective, you might want to come read this.
Investigators receive a letter with no return address and no signature. But the author of this letter says they have information about who killed Margot.
In fact, the author even identifies the killer by name. Denise Evans, a friend of Margot's.
Police have no idea who the tipster is, but they now have a name, and they know that they need to find out
Ohio have been investigating the murder of popular family physician Margot Prade for nearly a week with little success. Then, after making a public plea for information, they receive an anonymous letter claiming that Denise Evans, a friend of Margot's, was responsible for her death.
There was some thought that there was some hard feelings between her and Margot. Maybe there was some jealousy or envy of her relationship with Thomas Houston.
Detectives locate Denise and interview her and her husband James about the allegations.
We appreciate your cooperation.
Oh, certainly.
How long have you known Margot?
For close to about 10 years now.
We used to socialize with both of them, her and Douglas, before the divorce.
Denise explains that after the divorce, she and Margot remained friends, and that she was the one who introduced Margot to Thomas Houston.
She set Margot up with the blind date with Thomas.
Were you jealous of Margot's relationship with Thomas?
What?
That's crazy. Why would you say something like that?
The detective puts all his cards on the table and he tells them about the contents of this anonymous letter.
This is outrageous. I can't even imagine who would say something like that.
So it's not true?
No, absolutely not.
Denise and James Evans deny the allegations in the letter. They also are able to provide solid alibis as to where they were the morning of the murder. So the police end the interview.
Well, thank you for your time speaking with us. We'll be in touch.
Thanks.
The investigation is back at square one. Meanwhile, Dr. Margot's family lays her to rest in a ceremony that draws citywide attention.
It was huge. A line was wrapped around the church. People were devastated, sobbing.
But two individuals felt the weight of this tragedy in a way that no one else could. Margot's daughters, 12-year-old Kenya and 8-year-old Sahara.
Kenya Sahir was so young, and everyone was there for Kenya Sahir. We supported those girls wholeheartedly.
With each passing day, the frustration builds for investigators as they search desperately for any clue that might lead to the killer.
The police spent considerable time and effort looking for the murder weapon. They had gotten a tip that the murder weapon was thrown in Summit Lake. And it's a fairly deep lake, a muddy lake.
Desperate for evidence, police send a team of divers into the lake to search for the gun.
So you gotta remember here, it's November in Ohio. The water is cold, it's murky, it's dark, it's deep. There really was no trace of the gun that they could find.
Even if the murder weapon was thrown in there, they almost assuredly never would have found it.
Then they finally get a break. They learn a car dealership next to Margot's office has surveillance cameras which point in the direction of the parking lot.
Today, of course, most businesses have surveillance cameras, but back in 1997, that was not the case.
But the video's quality is a far cry from today's high-def standards.
If it wasn't digital technology, we even sent this video to NASA, trying to get it as clear as humanly possible.
One thing police get is a timeline of the shooting. The enhanced video shows Margot's van arriving at her office at 9:09 a.m.
The officers also discover that there had been a white car waiting there for at least 10 minutes, and then you could see a very shadowy figure get out of that white car, walk over to the minivan, and get in the passenger door. And about 90 seconds transpired, and then they opened the door. A few more seconds transpired, and then that person went back to the white car and left.
There's no doubt in detectives' minds that this person is the killer. But the poor quality of the footage poses another problem.
The image was so grainy, they couldn't even tell whether it was a man or a woman.
The owner of the car dealership has other key information.
So you knew Dr. Praed, is that correct?
Oh yeah, I knew Dr. Praed. In fact, I spoke with her that morning.
You did? About what?
Well, she was buying a new car from us, an SUV. It was on order, so she was calling to see when it might be coming in.
Aside from this new SUV, the dealer had also sold Margot the van she was driving on the day of the murder. He informs detectives of a unique safety feature it included.
When you got it up over 15 miles an hour, all the doors automatically locked. And they stay locked even when you stop.
So when she pulled into the lot, all the doors were locked?
Yeah.
So in order for someone to get into the car, they either had to have a key or Margot would have had to have unlocked the door.
This confirms what police already suspected. Margot's killer was someone she knew. The two men closest to the doctor were her ex-husband, Police Captain Douglas Praed, and her new boyfriend, Thomas Houston. Now detectives wonder if they had been too quick to dismiss them as suspects.
It was known by friends and family that Doug Praed had a key to the van that Margot was driving.
Thomas could have had a key to the van, but even if he didn't, Margot would have let him in.
And although longtime friend Denise Evans seems to have an airtight alibi, the information about the vehicle's locking mechanism now prohibits detectives from ruling her out. But before inquiries can be reopened into these three potential suspects, a surprise witness comes forward with game-changing information about the morning of the murder.
He was there that morning. He saw the white car driving away, and he could identify who was driving it.
Detectives in Akron, Ohio believe the individual responsible for the murder of Dr. Margot Praed was someone close to her. And while surveillance footage of the crime scene can't specifically ID the killer, investigators have one other key piece of evidence that might: the bite mark on Margot's arm.
Now, a bite mark is not as conclusive as, let's say, a fingerprint is, but it can be compared to a suspect's teeth to either include them or exclude them.
And so we decided, let's start getting exemplars and let's start seeing if we can't exclude some of these other suspects that have been thrown out here.
Investigators obtained dental impressions from numerous people, including ex-husband Douglas Praed, boyfriend Thomas Houston, and Margot's friend Denise Evans. As comparisons are being conducted by a forensic dentist, investigators use the surveillance video to cross-reference the alibis of their three potential suspects. They start with Police Captain Doug Praed.
When they had initially looked at Doug Prade, they believed that the murder had happened somewhere between 9:30 to 10:15. But now they know that the murder happened somewhere around 9:10 or 9:12. This is a completely different story.
Doug Prade had told detectives he was working out between 9:30 and 10:30, and a witness was able to verify that.
But Doug Prade's apartment was only a 6-minute drive away from Margot's office, so he could have been in that parking lot at 9:12 and then to the gym by 9:30.
When police questioned Doug the morning of the murder, they tested his hands for gunshot residue. The initial results were negative, but when investigators dig deeper into the report, they uncover an important error.
It was a new gunshot residue kit, and the person that did the test forgot to remove the tape, and so they swabbed his hands, and they didn't get any sample.
Investigators also dig deeper into Doug and Margot's divorce, and soon discover it was anything but amicable.
Initially, Margot's friends and family did not want to come forward and say anything negative about Doug. After all, he's a police captain. But eventually, slowly, they started coming forward and saying how volatile the relationship had become.
There were a whole host of issues going on with Margot and Doug's marriage. Doug had had multiple affairs and in fact had fathered a child by another woman.
Friends and family say Margot was willing to look the other way, at least for a while.
Where have you been?
I didn't think you would still be up.
Well, I'm surprised you thought about me at all those little girlfriends you've been running around with.
Come on, don't do this right now.
I'm sick of being your doormat. Think you can walk all over me.
Margot's friends say that eventually she became fed up with Doug's serial infidelity and filed for divorce. As for Doug, he wasn't so much okay with the divorce as he was in denial.
Doug wouldn't even hire a lawyer, wouldn't sign the papers. It became an uncontested divorce because he wouldn't get involved in any way.
And when the presiding judge awarded Margot the family home, Doug refused to acknowledge that decision as well.
He had keys to the house, so he would just let himself in.
Ultimately, Margot had to obtain a court order to have Doug removed from the home.
Margot's finally free to start dating other men. This incensed Doug even more.
When she would be out, he would question the babysitter and later the children on where she had been and who she was with.
When Margot starts dating Thomas Houston, that really sets Doug off. Not only is he a professional, a well-to-do attorney, he also doesn't live in Akron. He lives in Columbus, which means that Doug has no control over him.
She just wanted Douglas to go away and let her live the rest of her life out in peace and harmony, and he just wasn't willing to do that.
He couldn't let go. I remember one time I was over at her house, and he came in. Me and Margot was there.
Margot! We gotta talk about this right now!
You doing him right now?
Who's this guy Thomas you've been seeing?
None of your business.
Who's Thomas?
Get out of here right now.
And I never saw rage like that. Scaring rage. Frightful rage. I'm talking about fear.
We gonna talk about this, Margot!
According to Margot's loved ones, the weekend before the murder, Margot flew to Las Vegas with Thomas Houston.
Margot got a phone call from Douglas Prade in which it was relayed to her that he was staying at her house with her kids. This made Margot extremely upset.
She changed the locks and installed a security system. He would still go over there and gain access to the home.
Now at her wit's end, in November of 1997, Margot called her attorney to discuss further legal action against her ex-husband.
Doug came over unannounced again.
She wants to go back to court to have Doug's joint custody revoked. This will mean he couldn't see his daughters whenever he wanted. She also wants his child support payments increased.
I made him pay less as a favor to him, but I need him to pay the full amount.
And while Margot Prade was moving on and starting a new life, his life was somewhat unraveling. He was in financial trouble. He had a lot of debt, and she was going after him for more child support.
But apparently, Margot also took issue with something Doug did just prior to her death.
She complained about Doug having keys to her van. He used it anytime he wanted to without her permission.
Detectives have to wonder, did Doug use his key that morning to enter Margot's van and kill her?
The problem is that this is all very circumstantial. Douglas Praed appears to have a motive. He's very jealous of the relationship that Margot has. He also is having financial difficulties, but this is not enough for an arrest.
The investigation grinds on. Then almost 3 months after the shooting, a man named Howard Brooks comes forward with a shocking revelation.
Thanks for coming in.
All right, thank you, sir.
So, tell us what you know.
His name was Howard Brooks, and he was a patient of Margot's. And he had just been there that morning.
And after the appointment, I was outside waiting on my ride to come. And I saw this white car just peel out the parking lot.
At the time, Brooks didn't think it was a big deal. But later on, people he talked to thought he should go to the police.
So did you get a good look at the driver?
Yes, absolutely.
Would you recognize him if you saw him again?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure.
The detectives show him a photo lineup, which includes a photo of Douglas Praed.
That's him. That's him right there.
You're sure?
Positive.
Howard was very adamant that Doug Praed was the driver of the car. He also felt that perhaps there might have been someone else in the car with him. He wasn't sure.
Detectives now believe they have enough evidence to arrest Douglas Praed for his ex-wife's murder. But there are still nagging questions.
Howard Brooks' statement places Doug Praed at the scene, but it does not prove that he was the shooter. What about the other person in the car? Could they have been the shooter or an accomplice?
Brooks has identified Margot Praed's ex-husband Douglas as the man he saw speed away from her office on the morning of November 26, 1997. While detectives think Douglas shot his ex-wife out of jealousy, they have questions about the second person Howard places inside the getaway car.
Could this other person in the car be the actual shooter? Could Doug Praed have just been the getaway driver?
As investigators ponder these questions, comparisons on the bite mark impressions on Margot's upper left arm are completed.
That was the lab. The mold they made of Doug's mouth, it matches Margot.
You have to remember, this was only half of a bite mark, but only the bottom teeth were the ones that were left an impression. Doug had an upper partial denture, so his entire upper mouth was a denture that was removable.
When the mold of Doug's lower teeth was compared to the bite mark on Margot's arm, it's a match. And it's enough to convince detectives that Doug must be the shooter.
Looks like he's our guy.
The bite mark had to have taken place during the assault. Doug got into the car, he struggled with Margot over the gun, and he bit her.
On February 23, 1998, Akron police arrest one of their own, Captain Douglas Praed, and charge him with the murder of his ex-wife.
When he got arrested, everybody was elated.
Others have mixed emotions.
I was very angry, because she was loved by so many people. How can anyone want to do that to someone?
It was really strange because I respected Douglas. I respected the work he did at the police department, but in my heart, I knew Douglas had killed her, and I knew that they arrested the right man.
The arrest of a high-ranking police official for murder is front-page news all over the state.
Akron police captain kills his ex-wife, who's a prominent doctor. It's unprecedented. One of Akron's most notorious murder cases.
There are people who refer to it as kind of our local OJ case. Everyone knows about it, and most people have an opinion on it, very similar to OJ as well. There's people who are convinced that he's guilty, and then there are people who think that he isn't.
As prosecutors prepare for trial, investigators uncover even more damning evidence against Douglas.
It was a bank deposit from 6 weeks prior to the homicide. On the back side of it, he had handwritten out numerous bills that he had, and then they were totaled up. And then that total amount was subtracted from the sum of $75,000.
Now, $75,000 is significant because that is the amount of money that Douglas had to gain if Margot had died prior to February of 1998, in which time her life insurance policy would expire. Douglas Praed was the only beneficiary of that life insurance.
On September 1st, 1998, in a Summit County courtroom, the state of Ohio versus Douglas Praed gets underway. Armed with their new cache of evidence, prosecutors open their case by painting a picture of a jealous and controlling ex-husband who would rather kill his ex-wife than see her with another man.
You have an ugly divorce. You have Doug Praed exhibiting controlling and abusive behavior. Margot Praed had told friends and family she was in fear for her life.
He knew she was planning to marry Thomas Houston. He knew she was going to court to try to take away custody, to try to increase child support, and he wasn't going to stand for it.
Prosecutors argue that on the morning of the murder, Captain Praed drove to his ex-wife's office, arriving just before 9. Praed waited in the parking lot for Margot's van to arrive.
She pulled in a little after 9. He walks over to the van, probably unlocked the passenger side door with his key.
Margot, open up the door.
Lucas, what are you doing here?
Let me in. I want to talk to you.
No, I'm not letting you in. There's nothing to talk about. No, there's nothing to talk about. Lucas, what are you doing?
He gets inside. They argue.
Please get out of my car.
Wow, we need to talk about this. Let's work
There's
this
nothing to talk about.
He pulls a gun on her.
We're gonna be together.
He points a gun at her, and she didn't just sit there and take it. She fought him. I don't think he was expecting that. And so he ended up doing something that was not planned by biting her.
He emptied the gun into her. Then he went back into his car and he left. And as he was passing Margot's building, he was seen by Howard Brooks, who was standing outside waiting for his ride.
Doug drives back to his apartment complex and rushes down to the gym, trying to establish an alibi.
I don't think he counted on the fact that we were going to be able to pinpoint the exact moment of the homicide.
But Doug's defense attorneys argue that the prosecution's case is purely circumstantial and that there is no direct evidence linking him to the crime.
No weapon was ever found, no clothing worn at the time of the shooting was found, no car was ever found.
The defense also attacks the testimony of Howard Brooks and his identification of Doug as the driver of the white car.
He did not come forward until a couple of months after the crime. Police showed a number of photo lineups that were suggestive, some people say.
To cement their case, the defense makes a bold decision and calls Captain Doug Praed himself to the stand.
Douglas Praed asserted that the divorce was amicable and that he was staying in her home at her request.
When he testified, I wouldn't say he did a bad job of testifying, but he painted a pretty rosy picture of their relationship.
Prosecutors counter by pointing to the bite mark found on Margot's body, which they claim is proof Doug was the one who murdered her.
We had photographs of Doug's teeth, the bottom half, and we had photographs of Margot's arm. And we literally slid one right over the other for the jury with the expert there to say, see, which they could see. It's a match.
However, defense attorneys make the case that Doug's dentures didn't supply his mouth with enough force to leave the indentation.
The defense's expert said that Douglas Praed was incapable of a powerful bite with his top teeth because they were loose-fitting dentures. There's no way that Douglas Praed could have inflicted this bite mark.
He attempted to do an demonstration in the courtroom of how weak his bite was. And the expert put a long baguette shape of wax and put it in Doug's mouth and then told him to bite hard on it. And this dentist, he pulled it out and Doug's upper dentures flew out of his mouth.
But in the prosecution's mind, the demonstration backfires.
The defense's demonstration actually answered why there was only half a bite mark. Anyone else would have left a top and bottom bite mark, but Doug did not because his top teeth came out.
This also explains an anomaly on the surveillance video.
When you look at the video, you have the person inside the van for about 90 seconds, then the door opens, and then they're standing there at the doorway for another maybe 10 to 15 seconds. You just shot somebody 5 or 6 times. Why aren't you slamming that door and running right out of there? Why are you standing at the door risking being seen? Because you've left something that you cannot leave? We surmised that that was Doug looking for his dentures.
On September 23rd, 1998, after 3 weeks of back-and-forth testimony, both sides rest and the jury begins deliberations.
I really was emotionally invested in this case. I highly identified with Margot Praed. She was just such a remarkable person. I just felt very strongly that her death deserved justice.
After just 4 hours behind closed doors, the jury returns with a verdict.
Douglas E. Praed, guilty of the offense.
He was found guilty of aggravated murder.
We were relieved because Margot had some justice. And it wasn't just us, it was for her. It was for the community. It was for all the good cops that are out there.
Even as Judge Mary Spicer sentences Douglas Praed to life in prison, the former police captain remains defiant.
I absolutely did not kill Margot. I stand here in front of you talking to you like this is a convicted person. I'm an innocent convicted person.
He stood up in court and he says, "You are sending an innocent man to prison."
He just keeps saying he's innocent. That's sick and twisted. You pulled the trigger.
Attorneys for Douglas Praed filed numerous appeals throughout the years. In 2010, an Ohio court grants his request for new DNA testing of forensic evidence from the case.
Douglas Praed's attorneys were asserting that there was new testing available that had not been available at the time of his trial in 1998.
A small swatch of Margot's lab coat near the bite mark is removed, and DNA tests conducted on it. While the tests reveal a partial male DNA profile on the coat, it does not match Douglas Praed.
The defense argued because Douglas Praed was excluded from being the partial male contributor, Douglas Praed did not commit the murder.
On January 29, 2013, Judge Judy Hunter orders Praed's release from prison, stating no jury today would convict him of the murder. Douglas Praed walks out of prison a free man.
When I read the judge's decision, I couldn't believe it.
Praed's freedom is short-lived. Prosecutors appeal Judge Hunter's decision, claiming the new DNA tests do not prove Praed's innocence.
They argued extensively in court that the DNA had degenerated to such an extent, there's no firm conclusions that you can make because of contamination and the passage of time.
The 9th District Court of Appeals agrees with the state and orders Douglas Praed back to prison to complete his sentence.
The Court of Appeals found there was overwhelming evidence of Doug Praed's guilt, such that these new DNA results would not have affected the outcome.
You have 13 months of freedom, and then you have to go back in and finish your sentence. That's poetic justice. The Lord gave him a taste of freedom only to send him back, and that's a worse punishment than if he had never gotten out at all.
Although nothing can bring Margot Praed back, her memory lives on in friends, family, and the city who loved her.
I want my aunt to remember for being one of the best doctors in this city. She had a great work ethic. She was nurturing to her patients. She was an angel. I know she's smiling down on us. I know I'm the mother today.
Louisville, Kentucky is a southern town with old world charm. It's home to the Kentucky Derby and one of the most famous athletes in history, Muhammad Ali. It's also a town with a history of racial conflict and police brutality. In March of 2020, the shooting death of a young woman by Louisville police would spark public outrage as her name became a rallying cry for justice. Louisville is one of America's oldest cities. It was founded in 1778 by Major George Rogers Clark, who helped establish a fort along the Ohio River. Its strategic location was attractive to settlers moving west in search of new opportunities.
The Ohio River was one of the main thoroughfares for travel at that point in those days. It became a hub for merchandise. Later on, it became an industrial city with manufacturing, and then whiskey, the liquor industry became important.
Thanks to Louisville's fertile soil, corn became a major crop, paving the way for what would become known as Kentucky's liquid gold.
Kentucky is the place where bourbon is made. I mean, nobody makes bourbon as well as Kentucky. And so it's sold all over the world. Most of the money in the city generated by the sale of bourbon. When we wanted to bring back our downtown, what did they do? They created Whiskey Row. Again, it's all about the distilled spirits.
But Louisville's growth and prosperity did not come without a dark side.
There's an industry, there's an institution that's built, the institution of slavery, that helps to build the wealth here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky's history with slavery, unfortunately, is one that goes back to the beginning. We had two very large slave pens here in Kentucky. One of those slave pens was actually right on the corner from where our Louisville Cardinals play basketball. So you have a slave pen that was located right at that corner where millions of folks a year go see the Louisville Cardinals play, but I don't think many people think about that.
Despite emancipation in 1865, restrictive zoning laws were passed to keep Louisville's black citizens in segregated neighborhoods. Yet they still thrived.
One of the oldest African-American neighborhoods is called Smoketown. And that's where many of the families begin to build their homes and to build their families and do their best to become successful.
The reason it was called Smoketown was because of the industries in that area and the smokestacks. In its heyday, you had 3 movie houses. You had the most famous nightclubs and bars.
It was really wonderful, and you knew you could go have a fabulous meal on a Sunday and listen to jazz or listen to someone playing a horn, but it was a very creative, artistic area.
The West End had been decades ago known as the Harlem of the South.
Those communities were thriving even when I came along, only to be basically destroyed by urban renewal in the 60s.
Most of Louisville's black citizens were pushed to the west side of the city, creating a bitter division that remains to this day.
A line down the city divides kind of the West End from the downtown area. People call it the 9th Street Divide.
Everybody grows up here knowing that, the West End is predominantly black. The East End is more predominantly white. It looks newer. It's, there's all these, healthy grocery stores, farmers markets, but then you go right back under and all you see is gas stations and, just mini food marts. Death rates are higher in the West End than it is the East End because of the access to healthier options of food. The air quality is better in the East End.
Many feel that Louisville's stark racial divide has also created inequality in policing.
Louisville's policing has been very directed towards the West End of Louisville.
I want to say it's like over 50% of the city's budget is in policing. Black and brown folks in the city knew and have known that the policing has just been, uneven, to put it nicely. Black and brown folks have not been safe.
Because of that culture, because of the history behind that institution, I get nervous. I have PTSD. I'm stressed out when I see a police officer. I get concerned for my life. I get concerned for the people who are around me as well.
And in 2020, one police shooting would thrust the city into the national spotlight. It's a little after midnight on March 13th. 26-year-old Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, 27-year-old Kenneth Walker, are at home watching a movie.
They went on a date night, and then they came back home, got comfy. They were watching Freedom Riders in bed. Breonna kind of dozed off. Kenneth was not fully asleep, but you're kind of super relaxed in bed, about to fall asleep type thing. And they hear a bang at the door. Kenneth grabs his gun. He's thinking it's someone trying to break in because it's Just after midnight, they're not expecting anyone. The door busts open, Kenneth shoots, and then after that, it's a barrage of bullets from every direction.
But the intruders aren't robbers. They're Louisville police officers carrying out a search warrant. When the smoke clears, one officer is wounded and Brianna is lying dead in the hallway. Exactly what happened that night and why will remain a mystery for months to come. And when the truth comes out, it will spark a national debate about police use of deadly force on Black Americans. Breonna Taylor was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, the oldest of two daughters, raised by a single mother.
Breonna comes from a very strong line of other Black people in her family. Her mother, Tamika Palmer, an incredible woman who has so much love, and you can just feel the love that she has for Breonna.
Breonna's mother relocated the family to Louisville in 2008, and Breonna made an immediate impact on her community.
She was that person, if she knew your name, if you had a moment with her, you were locked in forever, she cared about you. She was a loving person.
After graduating high school in 2011, Breonna attended the University of Kentucky. She left the school the following year to become an emergency medical technician.
Powerful women that worked in the medical field and loved helping ran deep in her family. Her aunts are in that field, her mother, so she kind of carried on their legacy.
It takes a type of person to, want to be in the medical field. Like, you have to have a passion to help people.
Breonna became friends with Kenneth Walker online, but in 2016, they took their relationship to the next level.
Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker remind me of Whitley and Dwayne from A Different World. I think Breonna kind of tried to play it off, like, oh no, we're just buddies. But she always had something there for him. They were the couple that built each other up. If one was doing well, the other was trying to match that or go above it, and then so forth. They were just always trying to climb, always making new goals. Speaking with Kenneth Walker's parents, they said Kenneth got himself together when he started dating Breonna Taylor. They said, he walks different, his swag changed, he was bragging about his credit score, he was a go-getter. Miss Walker always says that she couldn't picture a better woman for her son.
By 2020, the two were making big plans for their future.
She and Kenneth Walker were going to get married, and they were talking about having a family.
They had a baby name picked out already. Kenneth Walker had his mother's ring ready to give it to Breonna Taylor shortly.
Around them.
She was
a wonderful mother.
She was doing all the right
But then
things.
she suddenly disappeared.
Working her way up in life and really had a break.
The girls were there alone.
What about your dad?
I had a gut feeling something was wrong.
But now that future
The
has been
family and police
destroyed in
race
a
to
hail
find the
of
missing
gunfire.
mother of three.
How are we supposed to feel secure in our own homes knowing that anybody can just barge in, knowing the police can just barge in and, kill us like that?
We take
Breonna Taylor's apartment is located on Springfield Drive in South Louisville. The area is normally peaceful, but just after midnight on March 13, 2020,
the first of a series
residents bear witness to a violent police raid.
One neighbor described that she's looking out the window and she's hearing an officer outside her
And
window
the first
saying,
of a series
ram it,
911 calls came in related to
SWAT
a
vehicle rams through her
hit
gate.
and run.
She's thinking there's some battle going on outside her apartment, not knowing what has just happened to her neighbor right next door. Minutes later, we have Kenneth Walker walking out, hands up. There's dogs right in front of him barking. He's just confused. He's saying, what did I do? What did I do? What's going on? She's dead. She's dead. She's in a dead.
The shooting initially draws little attention. That afternoon, the Louisville Police Department releases an official statement.
Early this morning, we had a critical incident involving one of our officers who was shot and another person at the scene who was killed.
Officers knocked on the door several times and announced their presence as police who were there with a search warrant. The officers forced entry into the exterior door and were immediately met by gunfire. Sergeant Mattingly sustained a gunshot wound and returned fire.
At first, the narrative was simple, essentially just saying there was a drug race suspect killed, that was it, point blank, period.
According to the report, the officers entered Brianna's apartment as part of an ongoing investigation, an investigation that involved one of Brianna's ex-boyfriends.
The authorities essentially were investigating Jamarcus Glover, who had a record for being involved in drugs, drug trafficking, ties to a trap house on the West Louisville side of the community. What brought them to Breonna Taylor's door is Breonna had a relationship with him in the past. That was essentially one of the main links they used to say, okay, assuming she must be connected with him.
Detectives obtained a search warrant based on evidence that Jamarcus was sending Brianna suspicious packages.
It was listed on the affidavit that was used on the warrant that these suspected packages were going to Breonna Taylor's home and they could have possibly had drugs in them.
That's what the justification was for this. And so they got a no-knock warrant because they said that they had some reasonable suspicion that that person would be there.
The warrant didn't require police to announce their presence, but the officers involved say they did anyway. When they stepped inside, Kenneth fired a shot, hitting Officer Mattingly. He and two other officers returned fire.
If this is the entrance door, her bedroom's all the way back here at the end of the hallway. Kenneth, has his gun. Door busts open, he shoots and kind of tries to go in this bedroom. And I'm not sure if, Breonna didn't get down fast enough or whatnot, but she falls at the end of that hallway.
Breonna Taylor was struck, I believe, 6 times, 5 or 6 times.
Check that wrist, dude. Check the wrist.
Brianna died from her wounds at 12:48 a.m. By 1 a.m., Kenneth was arrested for the attempted murder of a police officer.
He's taken to police headquarters, he's questioned. He says he still has, blood and stuff on his shirt. And you start questioning right away about what happened.
Is she and her? Is anybody else living?
He admits to shooting a police officer after he thought it was someone breaking in his home. He didn't know it was a police officer when he fired his gun.
So you just fired off one?
Yeah, just one. That was just the one. I don't know who's coming to this door. The door just got kicked out the hinges, so I'm scared.
There are a lot of situations when it's fight or flight. And the first thing you're gonna do is protect your home.
On Saturday, March 14th, Kenneth pleads not guilty to the charges. The following day, Brianna's name is finally released to the public. Louisville police consider the shooting justified, portraying the shooting as a drug bust gone bad. But Brianna's loved ones push back. They flood social media with messages about Brianna.
The only reason why any of this ever made news is because her family was relentless in making sure someone listened and someone did something about what happened to her.
It soon becomes evident there's much more to the story than initially reported.
If you look at the pictures from the site that day, the number of bullet strikes in the home is overwhelming. Bullets inside of drawers, that went through the wood. I mean, bullets everywhere.
In the weeks following the death of 26-year-old health worker Breonna Taylor, the story draws increasing media attention. Many credit Brianna's family for getting her story out.
What started to bring this story forward is the people who were involved finally being listened to, finally catching the ear of media saying, we don't have the whole story here.
COVID had just hit, And that was all that was basically taking up airspace at the time. The first, I would say, time widespread people start hearing about Breonna Taylor is around late April-ish, which is still a few weeks after it happened.
When I first heard about her and I heard that she was an EMT, I'm like, this is absolutely crazy. My heart went out to her.
I felt more connected to her considering like she was a Black woman. I'm a young Black woman that lives here. She lived here. That could have been me. That could have been my sister. That could have been my auntie, my mother.
The shooting comes at a time when awareness about the use of deadly force by police is growing throughout the country.
Felt like every day, every week, there was another one. Hey, did you hear about the police killing? Which one? People we're just incredulous. How is this possibly happening?
Now Breonna's name has been added to the list of victims. In late April, her mother files a wrongful death suit. The family's civil rights attorney accuses police of trying to cover up the fact that the raid was a disaster, starting with the search warrant.
Former Detective Joshua James said that he verified with the U.S. Postal Inspector that suspected packages were going to Breonna Taylor's home. It's later learned that James never verified anything.
The Postal Service said they never verified that any packages were going to Breonna Taylor's home for Jamarcus Glover.
In addition to that, the reason why that stands out is we have, if you look at the whiteboard, you have 2424 Elliott Avenue, all the officers and the team that's going to be handling that, as well as the other homes in Elliott Avenue and the other homes part of the raids that night. On Elliott Avenue, it says no knock. Breonna Taylor's address, above it, on that whiteboard, you'll see the word knock and announce. Kenneth Walker on the inside of the apartment says he never heard anyone announce. When I spoke with multiple neighbors as well, they said that night they didn't hear anyone announce, no one say police, and that creates this huge issue because it creates this blind wall of what could have happened, what did happen, and why it happened on March 13th.
By 2020, Black Lives Matter had grown from a hashtag into a powerful movement, and it quickly picks up on Breonna's shooting. But it will take another, even more explosive case to give Breonna's family hope for justice.
Mind, y'all don't believe me, officer. I'm not the kind of guy.
On May 25th, the nation watches in horror as cell phone video of George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police goes viral.
I can't breathe.
We were already in the midst of our own storm with what had happened with Breonna Taylor, and like so many things, was captured on video, cell phone video, of this man laying on the street saying that, I can't breathe, and you hear him call for his mother. After the death of George Floyd, I think folks just said, all right, we got to do something here.
The widespread media coverage brings new attention to similar cases, including Breonna's. And on May 28th, the 911 call from Kenneth Walker is made public, raising even more questions about that night.
911 operator Harris, what is their emergency? I don't know what is happening. Somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend.
When that 911 call was released, what it did was it put people in Breonna Taylor's apartment, because what we knew was that Kenneth Walker was charged for shooting at this police officer, and what we knew is that he's saying he didn't know his police officer. He thought it was just people breaking into the apartment.
It seems so clear to anybody who listens to it that, you know, what happened, how it went down was not the way it was reported. He was terrified, and he shot in self-defense.
You could hear him talk about the fact that he didn't know if Breonna was okay.
Does she alert have to talk to you? No, she's not. Breathe.
It was sad to hear. It was hard to hear.
In response, hundreds of outraged residents flood the streets in protest. Soon, violence erupts between protesters and police.
There were shots of people rocking, ambulances, the steps of The Hall of Justice were covered. It looks like a war zone in the city. I remember being out there, and there's tear gas going off, there's pepper balls being thrown.
But this is only the beginning.
It was like, I have to do something. Like, it caused you to want to do something about it.
The fire had been ignited.
May 28th showed the city, the country, the world that Louisville and the people who live here were not playing when they said they want change and they want answers, and that they want it now.
Following the murder of George Floyd, protests break out across the country. The words, "I can't breathe," become a battle cry for social change. But in Louisville, the crowds are chanting for Breonna Taylor.
Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. That's what you heard every night, over and over again.
Folks in the street just wanted to, remind everyone why we were there, and that's because Breonna Taylor was murdered.
On Monday, June 1st, another name joins the list of those shot and killed by law enforcement. 53-year-old David McAtee.
David McAtee, or Yaya, as he's often called in the community, had a barbecue place. He's a really a mainstay in the community. And so he was out there, he was grilling. It was late at night, and there were people there. It was at the very beginning of the protest. Technically, there was a curfew, but where he was is significantly removed from the center of town. The National Guard showed up and may have issued a warning or two, and then, boom, all of a sudden it was tear gas, which of course caused panic. And they were also using tactics like what's called kettling, where they would cut off city streets. It was kind of like a maze down there.
According to the police, someone in the crowd fired shots at the guardsmen and officers, who then returned fire. A soldier's bullet hit McAtee in the chest, killing him.
There was absolutely no reason for the National Guard to have been there in the first place. Absolutely none. And there's certainly absolutely no reason to have been shooting into a crowd the way that they were. So, and now we have another community member who lost his life.
I think most of the community members were scared of this could easily happen again.
Less than 24 hours later, the mayor fires Louisville Police Chief David Conrad. The following month, the city council passes Breonna's law, banning the use of no-knock warrants and requiring body cameras for any officer executing a search warrant.
All across the country now, some are feeling that no-knock warrants aren't worth the cost of life that often happens when they bust through that door.
In addition, the charges against Kenneth Walker are dropped, and the FBI announces they are opening their own investigation. But the controversy rages on. On June 5th, 2020, the day that would have been Breonna's 27th birthday, Louisville sees its biggest demonstration yet. Thousands of protesters converge on Jefferson Square Park.
So you have, people in the Black community coming together, people from all communities coming together, occupying this space, providing water, providing food, snacks, providing sign-ups to, join the organization, to stay in contact about the next march, and ways to protest that are safe.
Louisville is not alone in honoring Breonna. Birthday memorials are held in cities across America and other parts of the world. Celebrities such as Beyonce and Oprah Winfrey add their voices to the movement. And by midsummer, a petition to charge the officers involved in Breonna's death has gathered 10 million signatures. Jefferson Square Park has also been given a new name.
They decided to call it Injustice Square after the death of Breonna Taylor. And there was never a time of day, morning, noon, or night, that it was not filled with people. We saw hundreds, if not thousands, marching every night, every day, every night. You knew that people were going to be out and continuing to protest. This continued for months and months and months.
The folks at the center of the protest community here in Louisville didn't let it die. This incredible memorial popped up from community artists giving their love and time and honor to Breonna and then ultimately to other victims of police violence.
After 3 months, however, there is still no official response, and tensions are on the rise.
Who in here is a black woman? You know what I mean? Like, who out here is a black woman? Raise your hand. It made it real because it's not just Breonna Taylor's life, but am I next? Is it my life next?
The protest in newly named Injustice Square are entering their 4th month when the Louisville Police Department finally issues a report on the shots fired in Breonna Taylor's apartment.
The actual report that was filed was fairly minuscule and didn't really sort of tell the whole story about what happened that night.
LMPD is just known to do some shady things. They have had history of trying to, hide things, shove things under the rug.
Frankly, every person of color in Louisville already kind of knew the narrative about LMPD. This was obviously not the first time that they had done something like this, or disregarded people's rights, or frankly killed people that should not, did not commit a crime.
A grand jury is impaneled to decide whether any of the officers involved will face criminal charges.
The grand jury heard the testimony. They voted on the charges that they were presented with.
So we're watching everything kind of come to a head now. We're waiting to see what the fallout from that will be.
On September 23rd, the jury renders its verdict.
Only one of the 3 officers even had a charge levied against him.
Brett Hankinson has been fired.
I told him congratulations.
And he is going to trial, but not for shooting Breonna Taylor, for shooting into haphazardly other apartments.
The other 2 continue to be, our police officers in the LMPD. That honestly was a huge blow to the community, just to know that, yet again, no one was going to be held responsible for this killing.
The reaction on social media is fierce. Within hours, protesters once again flood the streets of Louisville.
The outcome of the grand jury decision was not what the thousands of people who had been protesting for months and months expected at all. Hearing Attorney General Daniel Cameron come out and publicly say that only Officer Brett Hankinson was going to be charged for shooting the walls in the apartment spoke volumes to the community.
Absolutely no one has been charged for any bullets that actually entered Breonna Taylor's body.
What that said to everyone marching, to everyone crying, to everyone who really felt now was the time for change was that these walls and everything else is more valuable than a black life.
Once again, the protests escalate into violence. In the chaos, 2 officers are shot. In an attempt to restore peace, Kentucky Governor Amy Beshear asked his Attorney General to release the details of the grand jury proceedings. In taped interviews, Officers Mattingly and Hankinson both testify that they knocked on Breonna's door and announced themselves prior to entering.
It probably lasted between 45 seconds and a minute. Banging on the door.
And this went on for probably 30, 45 seconds of banging and announcing, knocking and announcing.
Another key neighbor or witness is a gentleman upstairs, essentially right above Breonna. And when I spoke with him, he said he did not hear anything. But then we come to the grand jury, and those documents come out. They say that that neighbor did say he heard someone knock and announce after he said no.
Jurors also saw an interview with Detective Cosgrove, who fired the shot that killed Breonna.
At the same time I'm seeing these flashes, I know that John Mattingly is at my feet. I am also not hearing anything. It is completely mute.
The evidence is intended to prove that the jury's ruling was correct. However, following the release of information, 3 of the jurors speak out against the Attorney General.
Some grand jurors have charged that he bungled and did not present everything that he could have to the grand jury.
What the grand juror said happened is that in that room, they would ask questions, hey, can we charge so-and-so officer for this? Or can we see this evidence? And they said Daniel Cameron and his team would say, no, we'll circle back to that, and they never would circle back. Or they would say, no, that's not important. And they said that Daniel Cameron and his team essentially said, we're only interested in wanton endangerment because that's all we think can stick. The jurors said we wanted to try, we wanted to hold them accountable, and it just didn't happen. That's what the insight they gave the community about what happens behind closed doors in the justice and legal system. And it was kind of something a lot of people of color knew, or they felt just watching all these cases happen, and what they feel is justice never unfolds.
And even more fuel will be added to the fire when dramatic body cam footage is finally released.
Hey, she's down at the end of the hall.
After months of confusion and speculation, Breonna Taylor's family and their supporters are finally getting some answers. The unprecedented release of grand jury evidence, along with police audio and video recordings, capture the tragic events of March 13th as they unfolded.
From the moment that door is breached, there were hiccups, failures, mishaps. Essentially, everything that was supposed to happen in the planning didn't happen that night. The first person in line was supposed to have this shield. They're supposed to be basically protected from whatever was behind that door. They didn't have that shield. There was a certain line and order each person was supposed to be in, so that they have all the clear line of vision for what's happening and so forth, and that was broken. The officers don't even step more than, I think they get in a few feet into Breonna's doorway before the shots go off. In the files, the officer said they saw a flash and they thought it was gunshots. There was also a TV on that was flashing in the bedroom, and gunshots coming from the side, and we know now that Kenneth Walker, as he said from the beginning, only shot one shot. So we know those bullets weren't coming from Kenneth Walker's gun. Not only is Brett Hagerson firing through closed blinds in an apartment, his men are in there. For all he knew, he was putting his other fellow officers in danger. This whole thing happened less than a few minutes. I mean, it was door open, boom. And then boom, 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 like brrr, all over the place. One of the major aspects that set the tone for everything was seeing the footage, the audio, and hearing the tone after Breonna is killed. An officer asked if he was shot, Kenneth saying no, and the officer saying, well, that's unfortunate.
There's somebody in there dead? Who was shooting at us?
Hearing that the police didn't even know that she was dead inside, hearing that they didn't send an EMT or EMS or help in there to help her, hearing the officers laugh and giggle.
No.
The whole tone came off as a lack of regard.
Ma'am, can you hear us? Old Metro Police Department.
The first thing is to get somebody to help her, right? And with her being an EMT, that was one of the things she would have done for somebody else. She didn't even get that same treatment at all.
Keep walking! Stop! Keep walking!
After the recordings are released, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announces that the Justice Department is investigating police practices in Louisville, Kentucky.
The federal government feels that the actions of LMPD have been so heinous that it warrants an investigation to see if there are literally either policies on the books or practices that are not on the books, but that are essentially policies that are violating people's civil rights.
Now you have hope that will shed some light, and not only shed light, but bring about changes that will be needed and are needed in the police department.
The city of Louisville agrees to pay Breonna's family $12 million to settle the civil suit. As a part of the settlement, the city promises a slew of police reforms. Although no charges are filed, the officers involved are eventually disciplined.
Former Detective Joshua James was fired for lying on the warrant. Officer Mattingly was also fired, and Cosgrove was also fired.
Although her life was taken too soon, Breonna Taylor continues to touch the lives of others in her community and throughout the world.
Breonna Taylor was definitely the heart, the soul, the core for so many people that she basically touched and impacted. And you can even see that past her death, just the reach that she has made with, you know, the soul that's been left behind.
We're gonna try to keep her name alive. She deserves that. Her family deserves that. I just hope she's resting in peace right now.